Doug Peterson. What's
Hello?
up?
Hello?
Hey, what's going on?
Hey, so I had a question. I'm curious about the last guy that you were talking to. You asked him, you said, why does consciousness have to be created? I'm just curious, like, what do you mean by created?
Ask him. I don't really know. I don't think that anything is created in
Yeah,
that
like
way.
everything,
Yeah.
for me, it would be that if everything's already existed, then
Yeah.
couldn't a physicalist just cohere that with everything else in the universe and say that consciousness is kind of similar to everything else where it's existed since the beginning of the universe, but it can still be
Well,
generated in a sense? Or
you could try to say that, but it's still not going to be physicalism unless you can account for it in structural or dynamical language, like behavior and structure. Like structure and function is what I meant to say. Like this kind
And
of
also,
description.
if it is fundamental and it doesn't emerge, then it would like collapse into panpsychism or maybe idealism.
Mm-hmm.
what do you mean? What would physicalists posit about like everything
Yeah, they
Physicalists,
existing
would
since the
not
beginning?
posit consciousness at the base. That's what they would not do.
yeah. I mean, the physicalist is positing that structural and functional descriptions exhaust reality completely. That there's nothing else to say except structural and functional descriptions. That's it.
And also they would say consciousness emerges. It's not something that's like fundamental.
Yeah. As soon as you get into fundamentality, it collapses into other views, like panpsychism, the cosmic
If
humanist.
it's and so what's like contradictory in the sense like describing it as would you say that I could describe anything else as structural and functional like in the world right now?
You can describe all kinds of things.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
can describe I mean, I can describe my mind in those terms. That doesn't mean that it's an exhaustive description, though. Or it's
Well, I mean,
capturing everything there is.
in the sense like do you think that physicalism can capture other things, everything else in the world right now except for the mind
Well,
right now?
well, physicalism doesn't really capture anything. What we're fundamentally talking about is scientific descriptions. And science is metaphysically neutral. So the question you're asking, the way I interpret it, is more like, can science capture like everything except the mind? And I would say, in a certain sense, you could say something like this. But I would say that what science does is describe how the world behaves as it appears to us. So we experience the world through a certain lens. We describe those experiences in scientific language, but they're nowhere near exhaustive, number one, of the experience that we have to begin with, and then our experience of the world is nowhere near exhaustive of the way the world actually is beyond the way that we experience it. So there's two layers of abstraction happening here within scientific description. Scientific description is a description of a description. So it's like double abstract. So no, I don't really think it's the case that
And so science can't really like you don't think that's really possible for neuroscience to get into the abstraction of the mind without sort of begging the question in a sense where you're using
Correct.
experience to try to dive into experience.
Yeah, you are trying to reduce. So I'll put it to you like this: people like a Neil Seth will be very frank and say that what he takes consciousness to be is a controlled hallucination. Okay. Like what you're experiencing literally right now is a controlled hallucination. The same thing applies for every neuroscientist that's ever existed. Every time a brain has ever been observed, it's been a hallucination. Literally, it's been a creation. So what we're actually trying to do in that case, if we are materialists, is to reduce the hallucination to one of the hallucinations. Dog, what? Are you all right? Are you okay? Like, what? Like, to reduce consciousness to the stuff that it's conscious of obviously makes no sense.
Is that going to be a differentiation between like type A and type B physicalism as well? Like,
Well, of course. Yeah, I mean, they're different views, right?
well, I mean, isn't it type B physicalism that doesn't want to reduce the properties, but instead,
They say there's an a priori gap, but they're
what would you say about
fixing
that?
it a posteriori.
What would
I
you
mean, I
say
think
about
that it
that?
collapses into property dualism. And I think property dualism has other problems.
So if someone gave, okay, so like let's say that someone was like trying to argue like psychophysical harmony for God, and another person gives like type B physicalism as an objection, would you say that that objection would then collapse back into the dualist presupposition for God?
So the scenario you're presenting is that someone is using psychophysical harmony to try to boost the posterior probability of
Of God's
theism,
existence, yeah.
right? Yeah. And you're saying that somebody objects by asserting type B physicalism? I don't think that even works as an objection to psychophysical harmony.
I was just curious, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that. Would you agree, Cosmic Man? Cosmic Man's kind of the expert on psychophysical harmony in these spaces. Cosmic, would you agree that type B physicalism suffers from a particularly severe form of psychophysical?
I think it suffers less than type A physicalism. Because type A physicalism wants to say that it's like an illusion, while type B would talk in terms of like maybe identity.
Well, type A is saying, yeah, whatever you're saying is psychophysically harmonious doesn't exist, so it's like not a problem at all.
Yeah.
Right? But type B has to account for mental states in order to be able to identify them to brain states, right? So they're implicitly admitting
Okay. Yeah, I
that they
understand.
exist. But there's this a priori gap under type B. Anyway,
So
did that answer your question, Doug?
yes, and I'm curious, there's going to be another question that I have. So a lot of people, or like something I've thought about before, is if science is always working to try to explain things that were unexplained before, such as like the universe, such as like biology, such as things like that, things that were like incomprehensible to people in the past, could it be the case that science right now could be working to explain consciousness, something that's incomprehensible to us right now?
Could be the case. Question is there good reason to think? Yeah, lots of things are possible. The question is there good reason to think that it is the case? When we look back, there's a great book on this. I always recommend it to everybody. It's called Galileo's Error by Philip Goff. Okay, and the Galilean method is basically abstracting from experience in mathematical terms in order to engage in like this scientific project. That's what led to all the advancements we have today. Is this sort of method where we have this experience, but what we want to do is get away from that experience to more general terms. And that's where the math comes in, right? Things that we can share with multiple people.
I think also it goes back to like your earlier question about structure and function. I mean, if that is all science is dealing with, structure and function, and consciousness is not structure and function,
right?
Then I mean, it's not accessible to
structure. Structure and function is an abstraction out of experience. That's how we get these structural and functional descriptions, is by taking our experience, measuring our experience, and then formalizing those measurements. That is what functional and structural descriptions are. And so what Philip Goff wants to say in that book is that that is the reason for the extreme success of the physical sciences, is because of the Galilean method, specifically designed to ignore experience. There's no reason to think that this Galilean method is somehow going to turn around and explain experience when the whole reason for its success is by ignoring experience. It doesn't make any sense.
Interesting. And so if the problem right now with AI technology and people assuming that's becoming conscious in a sense is that there's no like qualia, and that there's no like sense of like a phenomenological state where there's something it's like to be a robot, you would say that there's nothing it's like to be a robot?
I don't think there's any good reason to think there is. I don't know that, but I don't see any reason to think that.
Could AI start working on its own science and then do tests on us and figure out the truth of consciousness?
Oh, well, that seems very implausible. We have some thought experiments on that particular question.
Can you give one, for example?
Yeah, I mean, imagine that there's a ChatGPT 10.0, but it's not conscious, right? It doesn't know what experience is like. And also imagine that you enlarge my brain to the size of the university campus. And let's also imagine, just I'm going to stipulate here that the data that this ChatGPT was trained on there was no talk of consciousness in this data. Okay, there's no like, oh, I feel this, oh, I feel that, blah blah blah. It's just like analyticity. Like there's no talk about feelings in the training data. Okay, so we have this super intelligent AI, but it obviously doesn't know what it's like to feel anything, and there's no talk of phenomenology. And we enlarged my brain to the size of the university camp. I mean, it's already that size, but you know. And we allow this thing to like crawl inside my brain. All right. And so we ask like, well, what is it gonna see? Like see? It's not really seeing anything, but what is it gonna see in there? Well, what it's gonna see is like tissue, brain tissue. It's gonna see neurons. It's gonna see synapses. It's gonna see dendrites. It's gonna see chemicals. It's going to see all this kind of stuff, right? There's serotonin. It's just going to see like stuff happening, right? And it's going to be able to dissect that stuff as much as is possible down to the quantum scale. And there's going to be nothing about that stuff which is going to let this AI know that I was literally there with it the entire time. I was there, bro. Behind the walls is a knower. I was there. And it would not have any clue.
What do you think? So, like, you would. So, I understand you reject physicalism.
But wait, isn't that like a little bit creepy to you?
That is a little bit creepy, yeah. And I honestly,
okay, I was making sure.
I do reject physicalism as well. What do you think it would be better, like a better explanation, or has just?
But what if this place is like that?
Has better explanatory power. What'd you say?
What if this place is like that though?
What do you mean?
Behind this wall, there is a knower.
You mean within the like structure of the universe?
Yeah. Why wouldn't it? Why couldn't it be the case?
Is this like a nod to panpsychism?
Yeah, of course. I mean, not necessarily panpsychism, but like idealism.
Maybe. Yeah, ideal. Well, what would you say is like the difference between like idealism? Are they not parsimonious?
Wait, the difference between what?
Panpsychism and idealism.
Oh, I mean, there's so many different forms, bro. Like, generally speaking, I guess I would say that panpsychism focuses on a bottom-up approach, whereas idealism focuses on a top-down approach.
Yeah.
So we're looking at combination versus decombination, generally, but that's not even true in all cases. Like, I'm not even sure that's true in the case of cosmopsychism. So it's complicated.
So ultimately, it's not all going to reduce down to physical states for you. There's another mode of being that's within the universe. That's something that at least anyone else who isn't a physicalist would subscribe to. Or isn't a monist, I guess.
It's the only mode of being.
Yeah. I'm not a dualist.
Yeah, right? I just realized you can be a monist and still be a idealist as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, well, I just had a couple questions.
Idealism is a form of monism.
Yeah, that's what I realized. I was assuming that physicalism is the only monist. Or is the only form of monism, but you can be monist and subscribe to idealism as well.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I just had some questions about that. Yeah,
cool.
I'm just curious.
Great questions. I mean, good conversation, man. Yep. Have a nice day, bro.